You know that feeling the day after Christmas? When you're tired down to your bones, when your guard is completely down, when you're just trying to recover from everything. That's the feeling these four people had. That's the moment when everything went wrong. A neighbor pulls a gun over trash bins. A stranger who never left the party watches from the shadows. Three men wait in silence while a family relaxes just feet away. And a homeless man lives in an attic for days, watching through the vents while a mother and child sleep below. I'm going to share 4 true accounts with you today, and I need you to understand something. These aren't just scary stories. These actually happened to real people on December 26th. By the end, you're going to look at your own home differently. If you're new here, go ahead and subscribe right now, because what you're about to hear will stay with you long after this video ends. Let me tell you what happened to Marcus first. Because his story started with something so ordinary, so mundane, that it could happen to any of us tomorrow. My name is Marcus. 2 years ago, I was living with my girlfriend Melody in this semi-detached house in Toronto, in a quiet area called Etobicoke. You know the kind of neighborhood I'm talking about. Old houses, narrow driveways, the type of place where you wave to your neighbors but don't really know them. We'd been living next to this guy, I'll call him Greg, for about 2 years at that point. Greg was just there, you know. Not friendly exactly, but not a problem either. Just a guy you'd nod to when you saw him outside. That's all he was to me. Just another neighbor. But something changed in November. Greg lost his job. And after that, I started noticing him more. I'd see him on his porch at weird times, 10 in the morning, 3 in the afternoon, always with a drink in his hand. Always staring at nothing. You could feel something building in him, something dark, but you tell yourself it's not your business. You tell yourself people go through hard times. Here's what I never expected. I never expected that the guy who once borrowed my snow shovel would try to end my life. You just don't think that way about the people living next door to you. It was December 26th, around 10 in the morning. The sky was that flat gray color we get in Ontario winters, and it was freezing cold, the kind of cold that makes your face hurt. I needed to run out to the hardware store, so I threw on my jacket and boots and headed out to the driveway. The first thing I noticed was the mess. Everyone had extra garbage after Christmas, boxes and wrapping paper everywhere, and Greg's bins were sitting right in the middle of our shared driveway. Dead center. No way I could back my car out without hitting them. I could see him through his window, so I knew he was home. I didn't want any drama. I just wanted to move the bins 2 feet to the left and get on with my day. So I walked over and grabbed the handle of his garbage bin. It was overflowing with bottles, more than I'd ever seen from him. I was just starting to drag it when his side door flew open, so hard it banged against the brick. The sound made me jump. "Don't touch my stuff!" Greg screamed at me. I let go of the bin immediately and looked at him. He was standing in his doorway in just a dirty t-shirt and boxer shorts. It was -5 degrees outside. His face was bright red, and even from 10 feet away, I could smell the whiskey coming off him. It was 10 in the morning, and he was already completely drunk. "Greg, calm down," I said, trying to keep my voice level. "I just need to get my car out. The bins are blocking the driveway." He was slurring his words, telling me he put them there for the truck, accusing me of thinking I was better than him with my fancy car. None of it made sense. The garbage truck wasn't even coming until the next day because of the holiday schedule. He was just looking for a fight. "Look, I'm not trying to start anything," I said. "I'm just moving them over so I can leave." I reached for the bin again, and Greg went quiet. He stopped yelling and just turned around and walked back into his kitchen. He didn't close the door behind him. I thought maybe he'd given up, so I quickly moved the bins, got in my car, and started the engine. Then I remembered Melody needed me to adjust the back seat for her nephew later. So I turned the car off and stepped back out to fix it. That's when Greg came back. He wasn't running. He was walking with this weird, stiff purpose, and his right hand was tucked behind his back under his shirt. He stopped about 15 feet away from me, on the icy pavement. "I told you not to touch it," he said. His voice was quiet now, which was somehow worse than the yelling. Then he pulled his hand out from behind his back. Your brain doesn't process things immediately when they don't belong. In a quiet Toronto neighborhood, you expect maybe a shovel, maybe even a bat if someone's really angry. You don't expect what I saw. And if you're feeling that tension right now, that fear, do me a favor and hit that like button, because this is only the beginning. It was a gun. A small black semi-automatic, and he was holding it at his side, making sure I saw it. Making sure I understood. My stomach dropped so hard I thought I was going to be sick. The air felt thin. I couldn't get a full breath. "Greg," I choked out. Put that away. Please. Get in the house, he said. What? Get in your house, he screamed, and this time he raised the gun and pointed it directly at my chest. I've never seen the barrel of a gun pointed at me before. It looks huge. It looks like it takes up your whole field of vision. I couldn't think. I just scrambled backward, tripping over my own feet, basically falling through my side door. I slammed it shut and locked the deadbolt, but my hands were shaking so badly I could barely turn the little metal latch. Melody, I yelled. Call 911. Now. She came out of the kitchen holding a coffee mug, looking at me like I'd lost my mind. Greg has a gun, I said. He just pointed it at me. Call the police. I watched her face change from confusion to absolute terror in half a second. She dropped the mug, and it shattered on the tile, and she fumbled for her phone on the counter. Then we heard it. The first shot. It wasn't like in movies. It was a crack that you felt in your chest more than heard. The bullet hit the brick wall right next to our window. We hit the floor and crawled into the living room, away from the side of the house facing Greg's place. Outside, I could hear him screaming things that didn't make sense, ranting about trash and respect and the government and things that had nothing to do with anything. Melody was sobbing, holding the phone to her ear. I could hear the operator's tiny voice coming through. We need police, Melody was crying into the phone. Our neighbor has a gun, and he's shooting at our house. The operator was asking for our address, asking if we were safe. Melody told her we were on the floor in the living room, that she'd heard a shot, that the shooter was our neighbor Greg, that he was drunk. Then Greg started kicking our door. The whole house shook with each impact. Melody screamed that he was trying to get in. Is the door locked? The operator asked. Yes, it's deadbolt, but... Another shot rang out. This one went right through the wood of the door. I saw the frame splinter where the bullet punched through, just above the doorknob. A beam of sunlight shot through the bullet hole, lighting up the dust in the air. I dragged Melody behind the sofa. We curled up together in a ball, holding each other. I kept waiting for the door to give way, kept waiting to see him walk into our kitchen with that gun in his hand. You know what's weird? In moments like that, your mind goes to strange places. I remembered reading this article once about how violence spikes during the holidays. Something about stress and financial pressure and alcohol and family issues all building up like a pressure cooker. And I realized that Greg wasn't actually angry about the trash bins. They were just the excuse. He'd been drowning in something for months, and today was just the day he finally broke. Open the door, Greg screamed from outside. I know you're in there. He kicked the door again, and I heard the frame crack. Then there was silence. Total silence for maybe 30 seconds, which felt worse than the screaming, because I had no idea what he was doing out there. Was he reloading? Was he walking around to the front? Was he just standing there waiting? Then I heard them. Sirens. Multiple sirens getting closer and closer. What happened in the next 60 seconds determined whether Marcus and Melody lived or died. The police response revealed something about Greg's intentions that makes this story even more disturbing. Keep watching. A voice boomed from the street, amplified by a megaphone. This is the police. Drop your weapon. I peeked over the top of the sofa, looking through our front window. 3 police cruisers had screeched to a halt in front of our house. Officers were piling out with their weapons drawn, taking cover behind their car doors. He's in the driveway. I shouted, hoping they could hear me. I heard running footsteps on the pavement outside. Show your hands. Get on the ground now. There was this tense pause where I literally held my breath, praying I wouldn't hear more gunfire. Then came the sound of metal hitting concrete. The gun. He'd dropped it. Greg's voice came through, but it sounded different now. Small. Pathetic. Don't shoot me. Please don't shoot. I heard the scuffle, the shouting of commands, the clicking of handcuffs. Then the voice on the megaphone announced the suspect was in custody. I slumped back against the sofa and looked at Melody. Neither of us said anything. We just sat there, listening to the police radios crackling outside, neither of us quite believing it was over. When we finally went outside, it looked surreal. Yellow tape was going up across our shared driveway. Greg was in the back of a police cruiser with his head bowed, looking like a broken old man instead of the monster who'd just terrorized us. An officer walked us through the damage. 2 bullet holes in our door. One had gone all the way through the wood and embedded itself in our kitchen drywall, right where I usually stand to make my morning coffee. If I'd been standing there, or if I hadn't moved as fast as I did, I wouldn't be here telling you this story. They found a bottle of whiskey in his coat pocket. His blood alcohol level was 3 times the legal limit. But what came out later, during the investigation and court proceedings, that's what really gets me. Greg had been planning to take his own life that morning. The gun wasn't originally meant for me. But when I touched his bins, when I challenged the one tiny bit of control he thought he had left on the day he'd lost everything else, he turned that violence outward instead. We moved out 3 months later. Greg is in prison now, facing multiple charges including attempted murder. But we couldn't stay in that house. Every time I walked out that side door, I saw the gun in his hand. Every time I saw a trash bin out of place anywhere, my heart would start racing. Sleep became impossible. Normal sounds would make both of us jump. The holidays are supposed to be about peace, right? About coming together. But for some people, they're just a reminder of everything they don't have anymore. And sometimes, all it takes is something as small as a misplaced trash bin to push someone over the edge. If you ever get into an argument with someone during the holidays, especially if they seem unstable, just walk away. Let them win. Let the trash bin block the driveway. Because I'm telling you from experience, your pride is not worth your life. That was the first story, and we have 3 more to go. Each one more disturbing than the last. If this scared you, imagine what happens when someone doesn't just threaten you, but actually gets inside your home without you knowing. Hit that subscribe button because William's story is next, and it involves a party guest who never actually left. My name is William. Up until last year, my wife Anika and I lived in this beautiful 2-story house just outside Denver. We were those people who loved hosting, you know. Our door was always open. We loved having people over, feeding them, making memories. Last Christmas, we decided to go all out. We invited about 40 people to our house on Christmas Day. Family, co-workers, neighbors, friends of friends, some plus ones we'd never even met before. By 9 o'clock that night, our house was absolutely packed. Music blasting, everyone laughing and talking, the air thick and hot from all the bodies. It was perfect. I was in the kitchen around that time, trying to squeeze past Anika's cousins to get more ice from the garage, when I first saw him. He was standing in the hallway that leads to our downstairs bathroom and the basement door. And something about him immediately felt off. He wasn't holding a drink. He wasn't on his phone. He wasn't talking to anyone. He was just standing there, leaning against the wall with his hands in the pockets of this dark gray hoodie. Watching people. Just watching. He looked bored. Completely, utterly bored. Not scared, not nervous, just bored. Like being at our party was some kind of chore he had to endure. I paused there with my bag of ice, trying to figure out who he'd come with. He looked about 30, average height, very pale skin, with these dark circles under his eyes like he hadn't slept in weeks. I walked over to him, putting on my best host smile. "Hey man, you enjoying the party? Can I get you something to drink?" He didn't look at me right away. He kept staring at the living room. Specifically at the couch where Anika was sitting with her friends, laughing about something. When his eyes finally drifted over to me, they were just flat. Dead. No emotion in them at all. "No, I'm good," he said quietly. "I'm William," I said, extending my hand like you do. "I don't think we've met. Who are you here with?" He stared at my outstretched hand, but didn't shake it. Just stared at it like it was something strange. "I'm with Joel," he mumbled. I frowned. "Joel? Which Joel?" "Joel from work. Here's the thing. I worked for a small graphic design firm. There was no Joel at my job. Anika worked at a bakery with 3 other women. We didn't know anyone named Joel. Not a single person." My friendly smile dropped. The host instinct vanished, replaced by something more defensive. "Listen, I don't know any Joel, and this is a private party. If you weren't actually invited, you need to leave. Now." The music seemed to get quieter right at that moment. A few people nearby stopped talking and looked over at us. The man didn't get angry. He didn't argue. He didn't try to explain himself. He just looked at me for a long moment, then looked back at Anika on the couch one last time. And then he smiled. This small, creepy smile that didn't reach his eyes. "Okay," he said softly. "Nice house, William." The way he said "nice house" should have been my first warning. Within 24 hours, those 2 words would take on a meaning that still makes my skin crawl. Keep watching, and if you haven't subscribed yet, do it now because this story goes to places you won't expect. He turned and walked to our front door without another word. I followed him the whole way, making absolutely sure he left. He opened the door, stepped out into the cold December night, and walked down our driveway without looking back. I locked the door behind him. Double-checked the deadbolt. "Who was that?" my brother asked, coming up behind me with a can of soda. Some party crasher, I said, shaking my head. Said he knew someone named Joel. Weird dude. We laughed about it. Within 20 minutes, I'd completely forgotten. The party went on until about 1 in the morning. When the last guest finally stumbled out, Anika and I were beyond exhausted. We did a quick surface cleanup, throwing away paper plates and cups, but we left the real cleaning for the next day. We made sure the front door was locked, turned off the lights, and dragged ourselves upstairs to bed. We were asleep before our heads hit the pillows. The next morning, December 26th. You know that feeling? The fun is over, Christmas is done, and you're left with a pounding headache and a house that looks like a disaster zone. I woke up around 10. Anika was already downstairs, and I could smell coffee brewing. I went down, and we started the process of deep cleaning. Trash bags, recycling boxes, mop buckets. By noon, the living room was mostly back to normal. The Christmas tree stood in the corner, looking a little sad without all the presents around it. William, did you leave a gift back here? Anika called out. She was on her knees behind the tree, reaching into that corner where the wall meets the fireplace. No, I said, folding up a tablecloth. We opened everything yesterday. There's a box back here. It was tucked way back behind the tree skirt. She pulled it out, and immediately I felt this cold sensation spreading through my chest. It wasn't a gift box. It was just a plain brown cardboard box, about the size of a shoebox. Sealed with heavy duct tape. No bow. No card. No wrapping paper. Don't open that, I said. Why not? Maybe someone forgot to give it to us, she said. She was already peeling back the tape. Anika, wait. She popped the flaps open. The first thing that hit me was the smell. Stale cigarettes and old dirt. Anika looked inside, and I watched all the color drain from her face in less than a second. She didn't scream. She just froze, her hands trembling over the box. What? I asked, moving toward her. What is it? I knelt beside her and looked inside. The box was filled with photographs. Printed photos, regular 4x6 size. My heart started hammering as I reached in and pulled one out. It was a picture of our bedroom. The angle was wrong, taken from down low, from the floor, looking up at our bed. And in the photo, Anika was asleep. Her mouth slightly open, her hand on the pillow. I was next to her, my back to the camera. I grabbed another photo. This one was closer. A zoomed-in shot of Anika's face while she slept. I grabbed another. Taken from inside our walk-in closet. I could see my hanging shirts blurred in the foreground, framing the view of our bed. I flipped it over. On the back, written in black marker, 3:42 a.m. I thought I was going to throw up. The party had ended at 1 in the morning. We'd kicked this man out around 8 in the evening. These photos were taken hours later, in the dead of night, while we were helpless and asleep in our bed. He'd been in our room, standing over us, watching us. I dug to the bottom of the box with shaking hands. There was a folded piece of notebook paper. I unfolded it. The handwriting was jagged, pressed hard into the paper like whoever wrote it was angry. It said, "You checked the front door. You didn't check the basement window. Always check your house before sleeping." I dropped the note and scrambled backward like the box might explode. "Get out!" I yelled to Anika. "Get out of the house now." We ran. No coats. No shoes. We ran straight to our car, locked ourselves inside, and I called 911 with hands that wouldn't stop shaking. What the police found when they searched William's house revealed a level of planning and patience that investigators said they rarely see. This wasn't random. This was calculated, and it had been going on much longer than anyone realized. The police arrived fast. I gave them everything. The description of the man, the gray hoodie, the pale skin, the dead eyes, the strange conversation about Joel. I gave them the box. They approached our house with weapons drawn and spent 2 hours clearing every room while we sat in the driveway, freezing and terrified. When the lead officer finally came out, he looked shaken. That's what scared me. Police officers see terrible things all the time, but this one looked genuinely disturbed. "We cleared the house," he said. "Nobody's inside now." "Did you find him?" I asked. "Any sign of him?" "No," the officer said slowly, "but we found how he got in." He led me around to the side of our house, to the basement window well. The plastic cover had been lifted off. The small window, which I'd always thought was painted shut, had been pried open from the outside. There were fresh mud marks on the concrete below. "He waited," the officer said. "Based on the evidence, he probably waited down in your utility room until the party ended and you went to bed. Then he came upstairs. The officer paused, looking like he didn't want to tell me the next part. There's something else. He led me back inside, up the stairs to our bedroom, and pointed to the walk-in closet where one of the photos had been taken from. "We found this on your top shelf," he said, shining his flashlight into the back corner. Way back, behind a stack of sweaters I never wore, was a sleeping bag. Rolled out. Next to it, a protein bar wrapper and an empty water bottle. "He didn't just come in for the photos," the officer said quietly. "It looks like he was hiding up here for a while, maybe even during the party." My legs almost gave out. I had to grab the doorframe to stay standing. I thought back to that moment in the hallway, telling him to leave. He'd walked out the front door without any resistance. I thought that was it. But he must have circled around immediately, found that basement window, pried it open, and hidden in our house while Anika and I were still downstairs cleaning up. He'd been there the whole time. While we locked up, while we got ready for bed, while we fell asleep, he was there, waiting in our closet like a monster in a child's nightmare. The police took everything as evidence. They dusted for prints, but with 40 people having touched everything in our house, it was impossible to isolate anything useful. He'd worn gloves for the photos. No clear prints on the box either. We stayed at a hotel that night. There was no way we could go back. The next morning, the police called. They'd run the description through their system, but without a name or a license plate or any other identifying information, there wasn't much they could do. They promised to increase patrols in the area. We went back during daylight to pack some bags. We were going to stay with my parents until we figured out what to do. But the house felt wrong now. Violated. Every shadow looked like it might be hiding someone. Every sound made us flinch. I was loading the car when Anika screamed from inside. I dropped everything and ran. She was standing in front of our television, pointing at the screen, unable to speak. We have a smart TV that displays our personal photos as a screensaver when it's idle. It pulls them from our cloud storage. On that massive 65-inch screen was a photo we'd never taken. It was a selfie. The man from the party filled the frame. His pale face, those dark circles under his eyes. But he wasn't frowning anymore. He was grinning, showing yellowed, crooked teeth that made him look absolutely monstrous. And he wasn't at our house in this photo. The background was the interior of a car. Our car. He was in the back seat of our SUV, his head popping up between the front seats. I could see the backs of our heads in the photo. Anika and I in the front seats. We were driving, completely unaware that he was right behind us. I grabbed my phone and checked the cloud upload timestamp. The photo had been taken 2 days before Christmas. He hadn't just crashed our party. He'd been stalking us, following us. He'd hidden in our car, in the cargo area where we put groceries, and he'd taken a selfie with us while we were driving down the highway, completely oblivious. This wasn't opportunistic. This was planned, calculated. He'd been close to us for days, maybe weeks, studying us, learning our routines, waiting for the perfect moment to strike. We didn't just leave that house. We abandoned it. We put it up for sale that week and sold it for way under market value, just to be rid of it. We moved 3 states away. Changed jobs. Changed phone numbers. We bought a condo on the 10th floor of a building with 24-hour security and cameras everywhere. But I still don't sleep well. Because the police never found him. They never found any Joel. The man is still out there somewhere. The case is still open but cold. And I don't know if he's moved on to someone else, or if he's still watching us somehow, waiting for another opportunity. If William's story terrified you, I need to tell you about what happened to the next family. Because at least William knew someone had been in his house. This next family had no idea. No idea that 3 men were hiding in their home waiting. Subscribe if you haven't already, because this next account shows how vulnerable we really are. The day after Christmas has always been the quietest day in my family. We sleep in, eat leftovers, wear our pajamas all day. It's a day where nothing happens, and that's exactly the point. That particular year, that's what made everything so much worse. Because when nothing is supposed to happen, you're not paying attention. You're not on guard. You're just existing in this lazy, comfortable bubble. Christmas Day had been busy. Family everywhere, kids running around, food constantly being served. By the time everyone left and we went to bed, we were exhausted. I remember falling asleep with the sound of laughter still echoing in my head. The next morning, I woke up late. Really late. When I checked my phone, it was almost 11:30. Sunlight was already bright through my curtains. That alone told me everyone else was sleeping in too. In my family, someone's always up early. But not that day. I could hear the TV on downstairs. Some Christmas movie playing quietly. I stayed in bed scrolling through my phone for a while, feeling that heavy, satisfied tiredness you get after a big holiday. Eventually, I dragged myself up and went downstairs. My dad was on the couch, half asleep, still in yesterday's sweater. My mom was standing in the kitchen with a cup of tea, not really doing anything, just staring into space. My younger brother was on the floor wrapped in a blanket, watching TV upside down for some reason. Nobody was alert. Nobody was paying attention to anything. And that matters. That matters so much. Our house is pretty standard. 2 floors, living room and kitchen downstairs, bedrooms up. We also have this small storage room near the back door where we keep tools and old boxes and holiday decorations. Just random stuff. My dad's usually careful about security. Locks the doors, sets the alarm, keeps lights on. But that day, everything was off. The alarm wasn't set because people had been going in and out all Christmas Day. The back door had been opened so many times that nobody could remember if it was properly locked when we finally went to bed. Around noon, my mom suggested we just relax and eat leftovers whenever we felt like it. Nobody argued. We were all in that lazy holiday mode. Phones out, TV on, not really thinking about anything. At some point, I noticed how quiet it was outside. No kids playing. No cars driving by. No neighbors talking. The whole street felt empty, like someone had pressed pause on the entire neighborhood. I got up to get water. As I walked past the hallway near the back door, something caught my eye. The storage room door was open. Just slightly. Just a crack. I stopped and stared at it. That door is always closed. It sticks when you shut it, so you hear this distinct sound when it latches. I didn't remember hearing that sound or seeing anyone go in there that morning. Were you in the storage room? I called to my brother. He shook his head without looking away from the TV. Mom, did you open the storage room? No, why? She said, looking confused. I didn't think much of it. That was my first mistake. I just walked over and pushed the door closed until I heard it latch properly. Then I went back to the living room and sat down. About 20 minutes later, my dad got up and said he was going to take a nap. My mom followed him upstairs soon after. That left just my brother and me downstairs. My brother fell asleep on the floor within minutes. I stayed awake, scrolling through my phone with my headphones in, half paying attention to the TV. I don't know how long I sat there. Maybe 30 minutes. Maybe more. Time felt weird that day, slow and stretchy. Then I heard something. It wasn't loud. It was soft, like fabric brushing against something, or something being dragged very carefully. I thought it was the TV at first. I took one headphone out and waited. The sound came again, like a drawer being slowly pulled open. I muted the TV completely. Waited. The sound came again, and this time I could tell exactly where it was coming from. The back of the house. The hallway. The storage room. I stood up slowly. My heart was already beating faster, even though I kept telling myself it was nothing. Just the house settling. Just something falling over. My brother was still asleep on the floor, wrapped in his blanket. I walked toward the hallway, every step feeling too loud, even though I was on carpet. When I got close to the storage room, I stopped. The door was open again. Not just cracked this time. Wide open. And then I smelled something. Not strong, but wrong. It smelled like cold air mixed with dust and sweat. Human sweat. I froze. Completely froze. And then I heard it. Breathing. Someone was breathing in there. Not heavy breathing, but controlled. Careful. Someone trying very hard to breathe quietly. Someone was in our house. What happened in the next 60 seconds saved this family's life. But the discovery of what the intruders had been doing while everyone relaxed will make you check every room in your house tonight. Stay with me. I backed away. Slowly. So slowly. Every single step felt impossibly loud. I wanted to run upstairs to get my dad, but fear made my legs weak. I had my phone in my hand. I thought about calling the police, but I was terrified that making any sound, any noise at all, would alert whoever was in that room. Then I heard footsteps. Inside the storage room. Slow, deliberate footsteps. The door moved slightly. I didn't think anymore. I ran. I sprinted up those stairs, almost falling, almost tripping over my own feet. I burst into my parents' bedroom without knocking. Someone's in the house. I shouted. Someone's downstairs. My dad jumped up like he'd been electrocuted. All the sleepiness vanished from his face instantly. My mom grabbed her phone. My brother must have woken up from the noise because I could hear him crying downstairs. My dad didn't hesitate. He grabbed his baseball bat from beside the bed and told us to lock ourselves in. Then he went back downstairs alone. Those seconds felt like hours. I could hear my own heartbeat pounding in my ears. My mom was whispering prayers. My brother's crying got louder. Then I heard shouting. My dad's voice. Then a man's voice I didn't recognize. Then another man's voice. Then a third. My dad came running back upstairs, breathing hard, his face white. He slammed our bedroom door and locked it. "There's more than one," he said. Those words. Those 5 words. "There's more than one." That scared me more than anything else. We heard them downstairs. Moving fast now. No more hiding. Drawers slamming open. Cabinets being rifled through. The TV going silent. The front door rattling hard. They weren't being quiet anymore. They didn't care. My mom was still on the phone with emergency services, whispering our address, saying multiple people had broken in, begging them to hurry. Then everything went silent. Complete, total silence. That silence lasted maybe a minute, but it felt like forever. No footsteps. No voices. Nothing. Then glass breaking. They were leaving. Probably going out a window to avoid being seen from the front. When the police arrived and cleared the house, they found the evidence. 3 men had entered through our back door. The lock had been damaged, but so subtly that nobody noticed. They'd done it sometime during Christmas night or early morning on the 26th, when people were distracted and going in and out constantly. They'd hidden in that storage room. Just waiting. Waiting for everyone to relax. Waiting for the family to split up and go to separate rooms. Waiting for the perfect moment. The police said this happens more than people realize, especially after holidays. Houses full of people make it easy for someone to slip in unnoticed. Families are tired, distracted. Doors don't get locked properly. Everyone assumes they're safe because it's supposed to be a peaceful day. These 3 men were patient. They'd waited for hours in that cramped, dark room, listening to us move around the house, waiting for us to let our guard down completely. They stole cash, jewelry, a laptop, phones. They knew where to look because they'd had hours to listen and plan. One of them was wearing gloves. Another left muddy footprints near the stairs. They'd been preparing to come up to the 2nd floor, where the bedrooms were. We interrupted them just in time. None of us slept that night, or for many nights after. Because what haunts me isn't what they took. It's knowing they were there, breathing the same air, listening to us talk and laugh, just waiting in the shadows for the right moment. The most dangerous thing isn't being careless. It's being comfortable. It's assuming you're safe when you're not. We have one more story left. The final account. And I'm warning you right now, this one contains details that investigators say still give them nightmares. If you've made it this far, hit that like button and make sure you're subscribed. You need to hear this last story. There's something about December 26th that feels empty. All that build up to Christmas, all those months of stress and shopping and decorating, and then it's just over. The magic vanishes, and you're left with a destroyed house and exhaustion that goes all the way to your bones. I live in a suburb of Chicago, about 45 minutes from the city. It's a nice area. Safe. Quiet. The kind of place where people leave their garage doors open in the summer. I'm a single mom. It's just me and my 3-year-old son, Daniel. Being a single mom at Christmas, you try extra hard, you know? You want to make sure your kid doesn't feel like he's missing out on anything. So I always go overboard. This year, we'd hosted a small party on Christmas Eve. My parents came, my sister. By the morning of December 26th, the house was a complete disaster. Outside, the weather was brutal. A massive snowstorm had hit overnight, burying everything in about 6 inches of heavy, wet snow. The wind was howling, making the windows rattle constantly. I woke up around 8. Daniel was already up, playing with a toy truck in the living room. I made coffee and started the long process of cleaning up. Wrapping paper everywhere, covering every surface. Around 9:30, I was upstairs gathering laundry when I heard a noise from above me. A thump, heavy like a box falling over. My house is a 2-story colonial. Above the 2nd floor is an unfinished attic. We only use it for storage. Holiday decorations, old baby clothes Daniel's outgrown. It's accessed through a pull-down hatch in the hallway ceiling. When I heard that noise, I stopped and looked up at the hatch. The wind was really loud outside, slamming against the house. I told myself it was just the house settling. Old houses make noises, especially in Chicago winters. I shrugged it off and carried the laundry downstairs. About an hour later, I was in the kitchen making sandwiches with leftover ham. I remembered putting this big platter on the middle shelf of the fridge, wrapped carefully in foil. When I opened the fridge, the foil was torn open. Not peeled back neatly the way you'd do it yourself. Torn. Ripped. And a huge chunk of the ham was gone. I stared at it, confused. I tried to remember if I'd come down for a late-night snack. I'd had some wine at the party, so maybe? But it didn't feel right. And Daniel couldn't reach the middle shelf. I just blamed my tired brain and closed the fridge. The real unease started around noon. I was vacuuming the living room. I turned the vacuum off to move a chair, and in that sudden silence, I heard creaking. Not the wind. Floorboards. The slow, rhythmic creak of someone walking. Directly above the living room, which is my bedroom. I knew for a fact my bedroom was empty. Daniel was right there on the carpet, in front of me. I was the only other person in the house. "Did you hear that, Daniel?" I asked, trying to keep my voice light. Daniel didn't look up from his truck. He said something that made my blood go cold. "The man is walking," he said. Just like that. Matter of fact. I turned the vacuum off completely. "What did you say, buddy?" Daniel looked up at me with those big, innocent 3-year-old eyes. He pointed toward the ceiling vent. "The man upstairs. He's walking." My stomach dropped. I tried to laugh it off, thinking maybe he meant Santa. "Is it Santa? Did Santa come back?" Daniel shook his head hard. "No. Santa went bye-bye." Then he said something that I'll never forget. "This is the dirty man." A 3-year-old saying "the dirty man" might be the most terrifying thing you can hear when you think you're alone in your house. What this mother found in her attic changed everything she thought she knew about safety. I knelt down to his level. "Where did you see a dirty man, Daniel?" "In the vent," he said simply. "He has eyes." I looked at the air return vent near the ceiling. It was dark behind the metal grate. You couldn't see anything from down here. Every instinct in my body screamed at me to grab Daniel and run. But I forced myself to be rational. It was the middle of the day. Doors were locked. I had an alarm system. This was probably nothing. "Okay," I said, my voice shaking slightly. "I'm going to check upstairs. You stay right here." I grabbed my phone. I didn't call 911 yet, because I didn't want to be that person calling police on a ghost. But I held my phone tight, finger ready to dial. I walked up the stairs slowly. The house was completely silent now. Even the wind had died down, which somehow made it worse. When I got to the top landing, I looked at the attic hatch. It looked normal. Just a white square panel with a small pull string hanging down. I stood underneath it, listening. For a long minute, there was nothing. I started feeling foolish. I was about to turn around when I saw it. A single drop of liquid fell from the seam of the attic hatch. It landed on the hardwood floor, right next to my foot. I looked down. The liquid was water, but dirty. Grayish. I looked back up at the hatch. The snow on the roof must be melting, I thought. A leak. That explained the noise. Water dripping, loosening boards. I reached up to pull the string. I needed to see how bad the leak was. I pulled the hatch down. The folding stairs extended with this metallic screech. And then a smell hit me. It wasn't mold. It wasn't old wood. It was the smell of human body odor. Unwashed. Sharp. Overwhelming. Like a subway car in summer, but concentrated in this small space. Then I heard a sound I will never forget as long as I live. From the darkness at the top of the stairs, right above me, came the sound of a zipper being slowly pulled up. Someone was in my attic. Someone had been living in my attic. And they'd just heard me open the hatch. I didn't scream. I didn't freeze. My body just reacted. Pure instinct took over. I slammed those stairs back up, though I couldn't latch the hatch properly because my hands were shaking so violently. I turned and sprinted down the hallway. "Daniel!" I screamed. I flew down the stairs, skipping the last 3 completely. I grabbed Daniel by his arm, yanking him up roughly from his toys. He started crying, scared by how rough I was being. "We're leaving," I said. "Right now." I didn't grab coats. Didn't grab my purse. Just my phone and my son. I unlocked the front door with fumbling fingers, ran outside into the snow in just my socks, threw Daniel into the back seat, and jumped behind the wheel. Thank God I'd left my keys in the ignition from earlier. I backed out so fast I nearly hit the mailbox. I drove 3 houses down and pulled over, shaking so hard I could barely dial 911. "There's someone in my house," I told the dispatcher. My voice was breaking. My son said there was a man and I heard him. "In the attic. It smells like a person. Please." Police arrived in under 5 minutes. 2 cruisers. I gave them my garage code, and told them about the attic. I sat in my car with the heater blasting, hugging Daniel, watching my house. It looked so normal. Christmas lights still up. Wreath on the door. It looked like the safest place in the world. About 10 minutes later, the front door opened. 2 officers walked out with a man in handcuffs between them. He was a nightmare to look at. Multiple layers of filthy clothes. Long, matted hair. His beard was tangled and full of debris. He wasn't wearing shoes, just dirty wool socks. He wasn't fighting, just looking down, shivering. An officer came to my car. He looked disturbed, genuinely shaken. "Ma'am, he's in custody," the officer said carefully. "We'll need you to come give a statement, but you might want to wait before going back inside. We need to get someone to clean up." "How long?" I whispered. "How long was he up there?" The officer's jaw tightened. "Based on what we found, at least several days." What police discovered in that attic is something that haunts investigators to this day. The level of violation, the patience, the calculated nature of it all. This is the final story, and I need you to hear the full truth. Please, if you found these stories valuable, hit that subscribe button and leave a comment. Later, after I'd given my statement, detectives told me everything they'd found. The man was a known drifter with a history of trespassing and petty theft. He'd probably entered my house a few days earlier, maybe while I was bringing in groceries, and had left the garage door open. He'd slipped in unnoticed and found the attic hatch. What he did up there, what they found, that's what keeps me awake at night. He'd created a nest in the corner of the attic, right above my bedroom. He'd taken the insulation and piled it up like bedding. Around his nest were wrappers from our pantry. Granola bars, crackers, Christmas cookies, beef jerky. He'd been coming down at night while Daniel and I were asleep. Coming into our kitchen, stealing our food, the torn hem wrapper, the missing snacks. It had all been him. But the worst part, the detail that makes my skin crawl even now, was the vents. The detective explained that he'd unscrewed the back panel of the air return vent in the attic floor. This vent had a direct view down into the hallway. At an angle, you could see into my bedroom. They found food scraps piled next to that vent opening. Turkey bones, ham fat, half-eaten rolls. He'd been up there on Christmas Eve. While my family was downstairs laughing, opening presents, singing, he was lying on his stomach in the insulation just feet above us, eating our garbage and watching through the vent. When Daniel said he saw eyes in the vent, he wasn't imagining things. He'd actually seen the man looking down at him. The investigators said if I hadn't opened that hatch when I did, there's no telling how long he would have stayed or what he might have eventually done. He was getting bolder, coming down more frequently, spending more time watching. We never went back to that house. I couldn't sleep knowing someone had been breathing the same air, watching us, listening to every private moment. We stayed with my parents. I sold the house at a huge loss just to be rid of it. We moved to a single-story apartment with security. Daniel had nightmares for months. He'd wake up screaming about the dirty man in the ceiling. He needed therapy to process what he'd witnessed. What terrifies me most isn't just that it happened. It's that it could have gone on indefinitely. If Daniel hadn't seen those eyes, if I hadn't finally listened to my 3-year-old son, if I hadn't pulled that hatch down when I did. 4 stories, 4 families, all on December 26th, all when they thought they were safe. Marcus almost died over trash bins. William had a stalker living in his walls. A family had 3 intruders hiding in their storage room. And a single mother discovered a man had been living above her bedroom, watching through vents while she slept. The takeaway isn't to live in fear. It's to stay aware. Lock your doors even during busy holidays. Check your windows, especially ones you assume are sealed. Don't assume someone left just because you asked them to. And please, listen when children say things that seem strange. Kids see things adults miss because they're not yet trained to ignore their instincts. December 26th isn't supposed to be terrifying. It's supposed to be peaceful. But these 4 true accounts prove that sometimes the most dangerous moment is when we finally let our guard down. If these stories affected you, please hit that like button. Subscribe to this channel if you haven't already. And most importantly, leave a comment telling me which story disturbed you the most and why. Your engagement helps this channel grow and allows me to keep bringing you these true accounts. Share this video with someone who needs to hear these warnings. Because the scariest thing about all 4 of these stories, they could happen to anyone. Stay safe. Check your house before you sleep. And remember, the day after Christmas might be quiet, but that doesn't mean you're alone. Until next time.